Welcome to Michelle's Making. Are you ready for coffee, crafts, cooking, and cocktails? Let's get going.
Welcome and welcome back to those of you who are returning. I really do appreciate it. Today is National Black Dog Day, Hair Day, Smile Day, and Homemade Cookies Day. So today we are making homemade cookies. Let's enjoy our coffee. I've got pumpkin spice in mine today. We'll make it a great one and get going.
In honor of National Homemade Cookie Day, I'm going to make some traditional chocolate chip cookies. Now, I buy most of my baking ingredients from Aldi, and their Baker's Corner products are really good. I purchased the milk chocolate chips and used the recipe right off the back of the bag. I'll include the recipe in the description box, but with most cookies, you start by creaming the butter and the sugars together, add your vanilla and your eggs, and cream well. Sift all your dry ingredients together or stir them together with a fork and add them a little at a time to your cream mixture. Mix well after each addition. Once all this is mixed together well, you add your chocolate chips. Nuts could be added as well, that's optional. I love pecans in my chocolate chip cookies, so I did add that to the second half of the batter. What about you? Do you like nuts in your cookies? Walnuts, pecans, almonds? What kind of nuts do you like? Let me know in the comments. Line your cookie sheets with parchment paper and drop rounded scoops, 1.5 to 2 tablespoons of dough onto your cookie sheets, spacing them evenly, and you'll bake in an oven that has been preheated to 375 degrees, and you'll bake them for approximately 12 minutes. Not only does parchment paper keep your cookie sheets clean, but it makes it so easy to slide the cookies off. There you have it, delicious chocolate chip cookies. The first thing I'm working on today is a backside upgrade to a couple of signs I picked up at Walmart on the clearance rack. For this sign, I removed the hanger on the back. A lot of times when you're using signs on your tablescape, the back side will be visible. This can be true on tier trays as well. Most of the time, these things can be an easy fix with craft paper or any other kind of construction paper or even burlap. You want to cut it to size and adhere it to the back. Now for this, I painted around the inside a little bit with my white craft paint because I thought it might show and I didn't want the brown to look, but in the end it didn't matter because I added some rope. But I began by using my adhesive spray and glued the piece of craft paper to the back of the square. I almost put it on upside down there, but I realized it before I stuck it to it. Next, I took some nautical rope from Dollar Tree and glued it around the perimeter of the sign. That's all there was to it, just to give a little color and decor to the back side, which does show on my tablescape. For this next little tabletop sign, I also did the same thing, covered it with paper. I used a paisley type print that had some beautiful fall colors. I began by just tracing the pumpkin onto the paper, again using my adhesive spray, which I have absolutely come to love when it comes to gluing paper to something. No wrinkles, it does a great job of adhering. They do even make it with a repositional adhesive where you can actually reposition it if it doesn't get on there straight. Now this is a permanent adhesive, so I have to get it on straight to start with, but it hasn't been a problem for me so far. But after I got the paper adhered to it, I took some twine and just wrapped it around the stem. I felt like this gave a little bit of depth and dimension to an otherwise very plain sign, and it looked good on both sides and fits well with my farmhouse decor. This is an example of something that you can do that's really simple and easy, and it just kind of gives a little bit of a higher end look to some very inexpensive Walmart or Dollar Tree signs. I think these signs each cost $1, or maybe one was 75 cents and one was $1, and less than $1 in supplies. And I feel like it's a nice little addition to my tablescape, and it gives the signs a little more of a high-end appearance. And that's it for our upgraded pumpkin sign. The next craft is a mock galvanized jar sign. I picked up this initial jar sign at Dollar Tree, and I just thought I could enhance it a little bit. I began by taking off the hanger because it's actually going to sit up on a shelf in my kitchen against the wall, so the back will not be visible. I also removed the ribbon at the top, but I left the piece of metal for the jar lid. I gave this a mock galvanized appearance by using some black and gray and white paint and a sponge, just sort of dabbing it on. You don't want it to have brush strokes, and you don't want it to be even. It's just kind of a dabbing technique all over, up and down, adding several colors together. And it does come off as being a galvanized steel look. I'm going to do the same technique on the sign portion, but I did this first by covering up the wood grain look and the vine that's printed on it. I needed a more solid background. It didn't have to be completely 100% covered, but a pretty good coverage was going to be needed. When you're doing this mock galvanized look, you need your background to be one of your darker colors. It doesn't have to be your darkest color, but it does need to be the darker color as opposed to the white or a cream color that you might use for some highlighting. And for this, I used the steel gray chalk paint. Next, I used my chalk paint in the color plaster and dabbed it all over. And now for this technique, moving forward, you want to use your alternating colors, a lighter gray, a darker gray, and the plaster color, and just go back and forth between them all, kind of mixing them a little bit. Now you can, this particular sponge was a makeup sponge, and it had a very rectangular look to it with some sharp edges, and you can mute that a little. You can either trim up your sponge with scissors and make it a more rounded sponge, or just blending your paints together. With this, I actually kind of liked that rectangular look as I was dabbing, so I really went with that and left most of it with that type of appearance. Don't forget to get the edges on the edge of the sign and also the edge of the letter. With me, no paint project is complete without the use of my handy dandy heat gun to speed up that drying process. Next, I took a piece of craft paper that looked like shiplap and glued it to the back using my handy dandy adhesive spray. I apologize I didn't show it here, but I do show how I'm turning it up at the bottom because it did stick down a little bit below the sign. I just used a razor knife to cut that. The next embellishment I added was some jute twine. I wrapped it around the neck of the jar a few times using hot glue to secure it on the back. Next, I took a small piece of jute and wrapped it, looped it a couple of times, and actually I started to make it into a bow and didn't like the way that looked, so I ended up just wrapping the middle with some twine and cutting the loops and fraying the edges. So you can see here it's just kind of a frayed bow. But there you have it, our mock galvanized jar sign. The next project I had was a very easy one using a canning jar and a decal that I cut out on my Cricut. And you know, canning supplies have gotten so expensive lately, but I really needed this size jar with a completely smooth edge for the product I was going to try, which is a glass frosting method using a spray product. So I began by adhering the maple leaf decal to the jar, and remembered that technique with using the transfer tape to wiggle it back and forth when you're taking it off, and it comes off much easier than pulling it straight down or straight across. But once I had that decal on, I taped off the top of the jar because I didn't want the inside of the jar to get frosted as well. I really wanted to see how this product worked on the outside of glass because I'd never tried it before. I don't know if you remember a while back, a few videos back, I did an etched glass using the Armor Etch product. But this is a spray product that gives a frosted glass look. And in the end, I love the way it turned out, and it's so easy. You may recall me saying before how I love trying new products and new techniques just to find something that's easy. But this is a Krylon product that I sprayed on, and once it dried, I took off the decal, and there you have it. It's frosted glass. Next, I used my antique wax to give the lid to the jar a more rustic appearance, and I didn't paint the center inside piece because I wasn't going to use that. I tied a piece of trim around the neck of the jar and added some lights, and that was our simple autumn jar. Now it's time for that adult beverage. Today we're going to enjoy a whiskey Frappuccino. This cocktail, I used a peanut butter flavored whiskey, espresso liqueur, and half and half. The full recipe will be in the description box, but you add everything with ice to your shaker, shake it up till it's well chilled, pour it into your chilled glass. The only thing left is to enjoy our whiskey Frappuccino.
Well, folks, that's it for another week. Thank you so much for sticking with me. I really do appreciate it. Don't forget to take time to stop and smell the coffee. Make it a great week, and I'll see you next Friday.